What all women want but won't tell you. Number 1, the word no. Women hate a yes man.
Yes, darling, I'm gonna bring out the bin. Yes, I'm gonna wash the potatoes.
Now you might say, David, isn't that exactly what women want? Don't they want a guy who says yes, who makes their life better, who really does everything he can to make them feel good, to fill her up, to meet her needs? Yes and no. Obviously, she wants a guy who's interested in fulfilling her needs, in making her feel good, in fulfilling her emotionally, physically, spiritually, of course, obviously. But what women crave even more than that, or at least as much, is a man who has substance and character, who can say no to a request, who can set a boundary. And how it is done matters almost more than that it's done, even though from your perspective it obviously matters that it's done. Because you can say no and be a or you can say no and still be kind. For example, she asks you, could you bring down the bins right now? And right now you either just don't want to do it for whatever reason, because you're at a work meeting or you're talking to a friend or whatever. You might want to do it later. You might say, yeah, I'm going to do that later. Okay, she says, no, can you bring it down right now? Oh, I'll do that later. Thank you so much. Very kind. You're gonna do it if that's your responsibility in the household, for example. Or a more applicable dating example. She might go,
I was thinking my friend and I could meet you, and the 3 of us are gonna go out together. But then it wouldn't really be a date now, would it?
and you can say, maybe some other time, but then it wouldn't really be a date. This time, let's just meet you and I. So you don't just have to say no. Sometimes the word no might cause a little bit of conflict and a bit of a negative emotional spike. And sometimes that's exactly what she needs. And sometimes you got to be a little bit more smooth in your approach. But the idea of saying no and thereby saying yes to yourself and standing up for yourself is absolutely vital. Because how on earth is she supposed to have any faith in you as a man and your character as a man if you cannot even stand up for yourself and set basic boundaries and say no to a request? Or just say, hey, this is where my being starts. Your being and your actions end where mine starts. Because I believe you should be able to do whatever you want to do, as long as you don't interfere with somebody else's right to do the same. And if she should start hindering your own free expression, well, then you have to set a boundary. Same the other way around, by the way. If you do, in our relationship, in my relationship with Fernanda does that with me. It's not a one-way street. It's not one person being the tyrant, the other one being the slave. Absolutely, it's a two-way street where if somebody does something the other person isn't okay with, you set a boundary. Now, here's the real problem. You aren't even used to stepping into constructive conflict and bearing the tiniest bit of tension with women. In your career, in your business, you're probably good at doing that. Maybe not, but maybe you're good in that area. But when you have an attractive woman in front of you, with there's a little bit of romantic spark involved, if that's the frame of the interaction, a romantic one, then you really struggle with setting boundaries. But you have to understand, she actually wants you to say no, even though she may be disappointed in the moment. More than you saying yes all the time, she wants to have faith in your character as a man. And she will lose all respect and thereby attraction for you if you just keep saying yes all the time. That's number 1. Number 2, something that women want and they'll never tell you, is to be teased. Now, teasing has gotten a bit of a negative reputation in society. Let's cross through here. But women really appreciate it if you can be fun and playful enough to break the seriousness of any conversation by teasing each other. Because understand, teasing is not ill-intentioned. Now, some men, as well as some women, are gonna tease you, make fun of you, with the intent to hurt you. And they're not right for you. And especially men you'd be surprised. It's probably true for you as well. How many men, high quality men, so to speak, good men, kind men, industrious men, intelligent men, loyal men, warm men, actually lack that caliber of male friendships. There are so many men who have friends who make fun of them, but in a negative way, not in a well-intentioned manner. But in a dating context, making fun of one another, as long as the intention is to share positivity and to crack each other up and to thereby imply a pre-existing relationship, it's actually fantastic. Because you do it with anybody that you feel comfortable with. Not doing it actually means that you're strangers. If you have to be all stiff around each other, well, that reinforces a sense of discomfort. But if she can tease you and you can make fun of yourself as well, and you don't take yourself too serious the entire time either, then it lightens up the mood. And remember, it creates positivity and great emotions, because that's what she's there for on the date in the first place. She didn't come to the date for a logical exchange of information. She wants to feel alive, and teasing her really works. So, for example, like she might say, like one of the most common hate comments that I get on the internet is, "But you're a ginger, ... I'd never take advice from a ginger." Fair enough. If a girl were to say that, like it's happened plenty of times, they're like, "Yeah, gingers don't have souls." The worst thing that I can do now is to go and justify myself. Like, "No, really, we do. We actually do have souls." No, instead I might say, "Yeah, my parents, they also thought about giving me up for adoption the second I popped out of my mom." You accept and you amplify the premise. You agree and exaggerate. Thereby, you let her know that you have zero sense of insecurity around what she just tried to tease you about. Yes, and it's not something that I created, it's something that I learned. It's a stand-up comedy principle. Yes, and you accept and amplify the premise. You agree and you exaggerate. It's really important because it doesn't just go one way. You know these people who can tease other people, but then when they get teased themselves, they actually react quite offended? No, you gotta be able to make fun of yourself. Now, little note on self-deprecation. Self-deprecation is extremely important. But used too often, it's also gonna make you come across as insecure. Now, if you're able to make fun of yourself once every 45 minutes, or once an hour, once over the course of a date, it actually shows that you can't possibly be insecure, because otherwise you wouldn't make fun of yourself in such a manner. So it's actually a fantastic opportunity to make yourself come across as very confident. Not used at all, you miss out on these opportunities. Used too often, it also seems a little bit insecure, because you know these people who are very sarcastic all the time, men or women who are really ironic all the time, that just shows they have a sense of insecurity within themselves that they haven't healed. Because if you can't be serious at all, if everything has to be silly and ironic, then it means you're also not grounded in your own sense of identity as a man. You also don't have any sense of conviction in your speech. You ascribe very little certainty to your spoken word, which also makes her call your character into question. So you want to have a healthy balance of both. Hey, buddy. So, absolutely scary. So absolutely do tease her, but then allow her to do it with you as well, and then respond once an hour or so, or once every half an hour. There's no rough formula, but sometimes respond with a little bit of self-deprecation. It's actually a very, very powerful formula that a lot of people use when they start speeches. When you want other people to like you, self-deprecation is very powerful. The worst thing you can do, to move over there a little bit, to get people to like you is to start bragging. Nobody likes anybody who's bragging. But if you can use self-deprecation, a lot of people are actually going to like you, because what people actually connect with is a sense of vulnerability. It's not holding up this absolutely perfect image. Now, another important note on that. You cannot go ahead and be so vulnerable and really authentic on the date that you sacrifice confidence. Remember, you have to come across like everything's absolutely amazing in your life. Not faking anything. But if you're unsure as to whether to be too vulnerable or too confident, absolutely opt for confidence. Because people like people where things seem to just be going super easy. Everybody has challenges, of course. But the fact of the matter is some people are a lot better at handling these challenges than others. So be fun, be lighthearted, be super confident. But in moments also have a 30, 60-second window of openness and vulnerability. Now, I have another YouTube video here that we filmed in the Guinness Lake in Ireland, where I actually explain vulnerability in more detail, because it's a super important concept as well. So for you to look at. So Teasing, extremely powerful. The next thing women want, but will never tell you, is social proof. Social proof basically just means, do you want to walk back a little bit more distance? Social proof is an extremely powerful principle because people trust the judgment of other people. Women trust the judgment of other women. If she sees you, either on Instagram, on your dating apps, during in-person gatherings, surrounded by other women, and I'm not saying that you need to make yourself look like some or something like that, but I am saying that if she sees other women react positively towards you, it builds your status in her eyes massively. Because remember, just to understand, we as human beings, our brain was primarily shaped during a time 200,000 to 300,000 years ago where we lived in tribes of 100 to 200 people. Each tribe had an alpha male, a tribal leader. All women wanted children from the tribal leader. Why? Because he must have amazing genetics to have gotten to that position, because he must have been able to fight off contenders in a violent fashion. Now he has access to resources and he directs the tribe, which is an added sense of protection. Because remember, what women ultimately want is genetically well engineered children, if you will, and the highest likelihood of them growing up and surviving. So by mating with the tribal leader, those probabilities are raised to the highest level. Now, in our society, there's no one tribal leader. Who is the leader of? So we use status indicators. One status indicator is having an abundance of options available to yourself. Because the tribal leader back in the day, he had sex with plenty of women. Basically with whomever he wanted to. And so, and by the way, whether this theory is 100% accurate, I don't have the data on it, but it does make a lot of sense because social proof works. And this theory that's been explained by biologists and anthropologists seems very reasonable. So he was always surrounded by women. Women saw the tribal leader be surrounded by women. And this is not some player nonsense that you need to become some player. No, but a healthy degree of social proof unconsciously shows to her that you have options, therefore it's a positive status indicator. So on your dating apps, for example, show yourself, for example, with your cousin here and your mother here. That is social proof, they're women. Doesn't mean you need to book a shoot where you have 3 different models and make yourself look like somebody that your ideal target audience wouldn't resonate with. Remember, you're a man who's probably doing very well in his career or his business and you're looking to find a meaningful, serious, long-term relationship. So don't put off the wrong women by presenting a player vibe. But nonetheless, if you have, for example, wedding pictures, it's supposed to look like it wasn't a big deal. Like it just happened. That's very important. And on a wedding, when Sarah is here and Joanne is here, she doesn't know who they are. Now, what you never want to do on dating apps is show yourself with just one woman, because then they're going to assume it's your girlfriend or your wife and you're looking for a threesome. And thereby you're going to disqualify a lot of women. So do show yourself either with several ones in a group picture with 1 or 2 guys, 4, 5, 6 women. Yeah, be a little bit intelligent. Feel free to send me a direct message or apply for a free initial consultation call if you want some more information on the details of that. On dating apps, on Instagram, you can do that. During social events, if you go to bars, by the way, don't drink alcohol if you go to bars over there. But if you do go, if you talk to somebody and then you involve other people in the conversation, either her friends, for example, if you start talking to a group, and then I'm not saying that you have to do that. None of that is necessary to find a high-quality relationship, but it's a powerful skill to develop for any social occasion. So if you start talking to a group, and then you make her friends laugh, and her friends start reacting very positively towards you, that is social proof. Because women trust the judgment of other women. Now, it may piss her off a little bit. That's why it falls into the category of it being something she would never tell you. Because remember, there's what the mainstream tells you women react to, and then there's what they actually react to. Same as with men. We aren't always aware of what we react to either. But the reason she might not necessarily tell you that she wants social proof from you is because it pisses her off a little bit. Because she doesn't want to see you in the presence of other women, ideally, right? Because it's going to make her a little bit jealous. Now, if there's zero jealousy, attraction is also decreased. Very important to keep in mind. There are things that are going to temporarily increase jealousy, and I'm not suggesting to play manipulative games. But there are things, that is a fact, that temporarily boost jealousy and thereby also attraction. Because a woman would rather be with a man where there is a certain sense of competition in the air. Not that you're doing anything to call your loyalty into question or that you're playing games. None of that. But if she realizes you are desired by a variety of other women, that will immediately and instantaneously boost her levels of attraction for you. So make sure you display social proof in a variety of different manners. Now, can you find a high quality relationship without social proof? Sure. But then how is social proof conveyed? The interesting thing is you can even use social. This is not a game you're playing. I just want to make you aware of it. So when you're in a bar, for example, and you're on a first date and you're talking to the waiter, having a male waiter react positively towards you and you being kind and making him laugh, that is a form of social proof, less strong because it's a man. And if it's a woman, a bit more nuance required, because you don't want to start flirting with a female waiter in front of your date. But you can, if you can throw out one or two comments really quickly that aren't an indicator of romantic interest towards her, but just to make her laugh in a generally positive way without hitting on her, that boosts social proof. Make the people around you feel good. Seek to add value to the environment you're in. Obviously, we're all living, breathing organisms. We need to take, we need to fulfill our own needs. Absolutely, for sure. But if you can add to an environment, that's very, very powerful. For example, you're a regular at the local yoga gym, rock climbing gym, CrossFit gym, martial arts gym, bachata salsa school. If you don't, no problem, don't worry about it. But if you happen to have any type of social circle, being able to introduce her to that social circle, not on a first, second date, but maybe within the first 4 weeks or 8 weeks, is actually gonna boost her levels of attraction for you by means of social proof. The next thing that women want from you that they won't tell you is a man who's on his path. I have to check my notes real quick. A man who's on his path. Women may seem like they want you to give up everything that you have, everything that you're doing, just for date night, just for them. And she may reward you for that initially in the beginning, but she's gonna punish you for it in the long term. True story. While I was still working for a tech company, there was a girl, she was in a relationship with a guy, and he was working in finance in London, and he really liked his job. But then he moved to Dublin, dropped his finance, his IB job, moved to Dublin and started in tech sales. Now, tech sales aren't a bad thing at all, and you could make a really good case that working in tech sales has actually offers a lot more benefits, because what you're actually paid by the hour is probably a lot higher, because the working hours are so insane in IB and still high in tech sales, but nothing in comparison to IB. But that's a different story. Now, by the way, when I'm doing these, when I'm going on these little storytelling rounds, I hope you learn something about storytelling as well, because you can just allow yourself to flow with a thought to make the story a little bit more elaborate, okay? Because I'm not just trying to teach you here at the level of the idea, but also through the examples and the way that I'm doing, okay? So the way that I'm conveying these ideas. So anyway, this guy gives up his whole life in London, and he was very happy in London. From what I heard, I wasn't too involved in it, moves to Dublin, she loses interest in him and starts flirting with co-workers in the office. I don't know exactly what happened, but I don't think it went extremely well for him. And he ended up being really, really unhappy. First of all, a woman needs to see that you will never sacrifice your goals for her. Now, your goals may evolve. Maybe you're extremely career-driven right now, or you were in the past, and now you're actually at a point where your career and your business is really awesome, and you want to make family your focus. That is fantastic. That's great. Let's go this way. And that's absolutely beautiful. Even if you may be at that point right now, and that's an amazing thing, and actually a lot of my clients are exactly at that point, she still needs to see that you do take care of yourself. Be that by going to the gym, be that by still working on your career or your business. Only making the family your full focus, mark my words, is gonna go to. Now, there are some cases, because I'm not here to dictate how you're supposed to live your lives. Some people really prefer traditional gender roles. Other people really don't like that. There are some men who like being stay-at-home dads. I couldn't possibly fathom that idea. But for example, my cousin who has a PhD in computer science, he says he would love to be a stay-at-home dad at some point. And he's gonna be the most amazing father. He's one of the most amazing people that I know in the entire world. Kind, intelligent, loyal, amazing person, hardworking, like anything you want. Like absolutely awesome. So I know when he's gonna do that, everybody's gonna benefit from that. Cool, individual happiness, amazing. But he will then still have to make sure that there's a degree of masculine and feminine polarity, that when she comes home, while his future wife may be working as a tech exec, and she's in her masculine while she's working during the day, she has to allow herself to come back into her feminine, and he has to be back in his masculine when she comes. Because he's gonna have two different roles. He's gonna have the father, daddy, mommy type of role, where he'll have a combination of masculine energy leading, but also a lot of nurturing feminine energy, but he has to be able to tap into his masculine energy when she comes, right? So there has to be that beautiful, polarizing dance. But most of the time, things are gonna go really bad if you just make her or just the family the focus. Because she still needs to see that you as an individual are pursuing something. Because remember, even if your family is your focus, how many hours a day can you really dedicate to that? You have 16 waking hours in a day. If you sleep 8 hours a night, you have 16 waking hours in a day. Can you a little bit more distance, please? 16 waking hours in a day. Extremely important for you to understand that there's a lot more things to be done in your time. For example, I have some clients who are just grinding hard, working their career, some who are just retired because they're rich. Fine. Or some who are even in their early 20s, just starting up, building their business. All awesome. Even if you're at a point where you should have a little bit more time available to yourself, use it effectively. Do something, because remember, progress equals happiness. The times when you feel truly alive, it's when you're engaged with life. It's not just when you're chilling. Chilling is amazing when you've gone through a phase of grinding and you just want to take a week or two, or maybe even a month or two, focus on yourself. But if you're at all ambitious, if you are an achiever, did you consider yourself to be an achiever? You're gonna get bored out of your mind, and you're gonna need to find something that's gonna give you progress, that's gonna fulfill your psychological need for progress, because we all have that. One of the deepest psychological needs we have, one of the basic psychological needs we all have, men and women, is progress. Tony Robbins says, progress equals happiness. And when we feel like we're making progress towards a goal, we don't even have to have achieved the final outcome, but simply making progress towards a desirable outcome is what makes us feel alive. It makes us feel like we're on our path. And if she observes you going to the gym, yes, being fully present with her, make a time for her, make a time for the family, that's all beautiful. But then you go to martial arts training, you spend time with high quality male friends. She needs to see that. Because remember, going back to that tribal leader analogy, that's who you have to be for her. And he was always, what would men do back in the day? They would go to war and come back. They'd go hunt, and then they come back. You have to go and find your hunt. And if that's a charity, that's beautiful. If that's helping old people, that's beautiful. If it's a career, your business, beautiful. If it's martial arts, beautiful. She has to see that you're a man who's on his path and who will never sacrifice his goals just for her. And if that means canceling date night every now and then that's fine. She would rather have you do that than just be this super overly available. Now, that doesn't mean that you're supposed to make plans and cancel. Still obviously be reliable. But if she sees, whoa, this guy's going for what he truly wants, it's amazing. It's going to build an unfathomable amount of attraction within her. Number 5 of what women want from a man and they'll never tell you. Radical honesty and effective communication. Most men are extremely filtered around women. Now, having a degree of filters makes sense. One of my old university professors actually said that you can measure the quality of a relationship by the depth of the teeth marks on someone's lip. How many times did you have to, metaphorically speaking, bite your tongue and not say something? And that absolutely makes sense. But I would actually argue, so he's 60, 65 years of age, killing in a lot of areas. There were a lot of professors at the university where I was like, I'm not sure if they were that amazing, but there were some that were absolutely mind-blowing, like really, really awesome. And that guy, he looked like he'd transcended the first paradigm, because biting your lips and filtering your communication is actually a paradigm that you get to once you've done the first, which is removing filters. Most men are way too filtered. And if you filter your communication around women, if you hold back, she'll sense it. She sees whether you say what comes to your mind. How is she supposed to trust you? By saying things that may risk offending the people around you or even her. You're sub-communicating to her that you have options available to yourself. Extremely important. And I used to struggle with that. It really comes down to communicating your needs. What are my needs? A little bit more distance, please. A little bit more distance. It's really important that you say what's on your mind. And most of us, if we work in a professional environment, I did that as well, we have learned to not say what's on our mind. Because if we're in a business meeting, we need to be extremely concise and careful with what we say. We want to think long and hard about it because we don't want to be wasting people's time. That overthinking that you're doing, that degree of over-analysis has helped you really well. In other words, hey buddy, it's a competence and you should appreciate it as such. But what is a competence in one context? I hate it, a little side note, when people don't train their dogs. Okay, dogs are amazing, I love dogs. But if you're a dog owner, for sake, train them. I cannot stand people who don't train their fucking dogs. Okay, dogs are absolutely amazing. I'm gonna get one at some point, super awesome, but train your dogs, Jesus Christ. Where was I? Yeah, what is a competence in one area may be a flaw in a different area. A little bit more distance, please. So you may benefit, and I would argue you do benefit from a degree of overthinking and over-analyzing what comes out of your mouth in a professional environment. But you gotta be able to switch that. You have to train yourself to articulate what comes into your mind. You have a thought, you speak it. You have a thought, you speak it. You have that filter. Thought, filter, and a mushy, whooshy version comes out. But women need to see that you speak your truth. That is the first thing. And then sometimes you will risk offending the wrong people. And sometimes you're gonna cross a boundary. And then you're either gonna say, ha ha ha, just kidding, or you might actually apologize if you've said something that genuinely offended somebody. But if you're so filtered in your communication the entire time, how's she supposed to trust you? She won't take you serious. Being too nice, by definition, is too nice. By definition, it is too much. So it's vital that you exhibit and cultivate within yourself a sense of genuine loving kindness. Jack Kornfield has a beautiful meditation on that. Check him out on YouTube. But being overly nice and holding back on your honest thoughts, feelings, and opinions, being overly agreeable, is gonna turn her off like nothing else. Because while women want a man who's nice and kind, they also want somebody who is firm. It is true. Gentle, yet firm and grounded. You don't have to yell, you don't have to be this uber tough guy. You can be if that's who you are. Not tough in a violent way or aggressive, but you can also be totally calm. For example, my mentor, the guy who I learned from in the beginning, because when I was working for a tech company back in the day, I was still married to my ex-wife, and I was in a relationship with somebody who just wasn't right for me, and I wasn't right for her. And then luckily I met my mentor. I've explained that story in other videos here on YouTube. This guy, he looks like a nerd if you were to see him, right? Glasses, right? Everybody with glasses is a nerd. But the second he opens his mouth, unbelievable communicator with women. Ridiculous, okay? So this guy isn't somebody who's the typical tough guy, but he has found his own authentic way of communicating. And that's something that I help my clients with. And that I would encourage you to do as well, which is to find your own way of speaking, of voicing your thoughts. How loud do you want to speak? How calm do you want to be? How many hand movements do you want to move? Some people like criticize my hand movements. Fair enough, no issue. But I cannot not be me. If I need to move my hands while I'm talking, because otherwise the thoughts just won't come out in a semi-eloquent manner, well then that's exactly what has to happen. So you got to find your own way. Radical honesty. But when the mainstream tells you, just be yourself, they're not referring to removing your filters, having a thought, saying it. I would bet you any amount of money that there have been situations in your life, probably over the last couple of weeks, where you had a thought, either in your work environment or with a girl, where you wanted to say something, and you know you should have said it, and you didn't say it. You had this little feeling, maybe it was here, maybe it was in your chest, maybe it was a little twinge, and you felt the need to say it, but you didn't say it, and you regretted not saying it afterwards. And it actually would have been better if you had said it. It might cause short-term conflict, but long-term harmony. The safest way to increase the probability of long-term harmony and peace, in other words, resulting from compatibility in a relationship, is to speak what's true in the beginning. And then, once you have developed that for months and months and months, then you got to go back to actually filtering yourself a little bit, because you will realize, oh, I'm actually becoming too honest. You can't keep your mouth shut at all anymore, which is something that I suffer from, because I shut up too much with my ex-wife. And then eventually, I just didn't shut up at all anymore. So then you need to go back to refiltering it. Because if you just say anything at any random point in time, if you don't pay any attention to how you communicate things, you're going to offend people also. And your intention should not be to hurt people's feelings. You gotta have a degree of radical honesty, which is absolutely important. And you have to risk offending the wrong people who don't have the same values as you. But at the same time, it still makes a lot of sense to assume as much responsibility for your spoken word. You know when people say,
I'm not responsible for how people hear it. I'm just responsible for how I say it.
while that's neurologically true, that you can never make anybody feel anything with your words, because it's an autonomous process and it depends on the meaning you give the words, it still also neglects the sense of responsibility that you do have for how your words are perceived, because they are probabilities. If I say something in one way as opposed to another way, the probability that it's well received is just a lot better. There are certain best practices when it comes to general communication, business communication, when it comes to building attraction, creating a man-to-woman connection on a date. There are just certain best practices, certain dynamics where if you study them and you learn them, you will be able to achieve much better outcomes in that scenario. So do assume that responsibility, and then obviously also be calibrated. But that replies to, or that rather that refers to reapplying a degree of filters once you've trained authenticity. One bonus principle of what women want, but they'll never tell you: leadership. Women want you to be the leader. What does that mean? Explained in detail in other videos. The very short version is let's. Say a bit of trauma here. I was actually, it's funny, when I was, I'd say 14 years of age, I got attacked by a dog. Some German shepherd, literally in Germany, jumped on me, and he was on top of me. He could have bit my throat probably if he would have wanted to, he didn't. That was scary as hell, because I just came back from martial arts training. I walked home and this guy zoom, jumped on me. And then his owner came and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Oh, you're sorry? You're sorry that this monster almost like took my life. Maybe he just wanted to play and I was a I don't know, right? So probably there's a little bit of trauma release that I still need to be doing. Anyway, women want you to be the leader and say let's. Being a leader does never mean telling women what to do. Fernanda can do whatever she wants, but it just means, hey, let's go here. Let's do this. And if she genuinely has a counter suggestion, well, no problem. More often than not, I'm super happy to go along with Fernanda's suggestions. No problem. This is not about being the tyrant. Because remember, most men are slaves in a relationship. And then when they transition out of that, some of them become the tyrant. And that's not nice either. It's not good for you. It's not good for her either. Because you want to be in a relationship with a woman that you respect. Obviously, who respects you, and most men don't even have that. But you want to be in a relationship with a woman who you respect, who sets boundaries with you. Important. Because only if she sets boundaries with you will you value her. Only if you set boundaries with her will she value you. That is a fact. But when there's a bit of uncertainty, I'm not sure, lead. Say, hey, let's go, it's going to be fun. Let's. With a sense of positivity, it's not this grim tyrant Darth Vader leadership. It's the invitation to an adventure. And if you can't lead and say let's, with a degree of certainty, then she'll have no faith in your masculine energy and your ability to lead a family at some point in time. If you want me to help you personally find the right girlfriend, life partner, or wife, click the link wherever it is and apply for a free initial consultation call. Looking forward to speaking with you soon. Take care.